The Boston Celtics are entering the final stretch of the offseason, and the buzz around potential trades is heating up. As preseason rapidly approaches, the pressure is mounting on Brad Stevens to make strategic decisions that not only strengthen the roster, but also help Boston navigate the increasingly complex financial landscape of the NBA. The key question is, what moves are left on the table that could make this team more competitive, more flexible, and ultimately, more dangerous heading into the new season? Let's be real. This Celtics team has already seen plenty of shakeups over the summer. Big contracts have been moved, familiar faces have been let go, and the franchise clearly has its eyes set on a tighter, more efficient rotation, not just in terms of minutes played, but in dollars spent. Stevens has made it clear from day one of the offseason. He's going to get under the first tax apron, a move that would give Boston much-needed breathing room and strategic flexibility moving forward. And with a few roster spots still unsettled and some open questions in the front court, there's still time to make another splash. Now, a few names have surfaced in recent trade talks, and while not all of them may ignite excitement across the fan base, they do show that the front office is exploring multiple avenues. The first idea that's been floated, though admittedly not the most exciting one, is a trade that would send Anthony Simons to the Kings in exchange for DeMar DeRozan, with the Celtics tossing in a second-round pick to make the money work. From a purely financial standpoint, this trade has some logic. Simons is on an expiring deal, while DeRozan has 2 years left on his contract. This move would help Boston trim some payroll in the long term and get them closer to that financial sweet spot below the tax apron. But basketball isn't just about the balance sheet. It's also about fit. And this is where things get a little murky. DeRozan, despite his reputation as a high-level scorer and veteran presence, brings a style of play that could potentially clash with Boston's core. He thrives in the mid-range, operates best with the ball in his hands, and doesn't stretch the floor the way modern wings are often expected to. Pairing him with Jaylen Brown might create some offensive redundancy, and when Jason Tatum returns, the spacing could become even more of an issue. DeRozan's not exactly a knockdown shooter. In a system that thrives on movement and three-point efficiency, it's fair to question how he'd mesh. That said, if Stevens is looking to get creative and shake things up without giving up major assets, it's not the worst idea in the world. But for fans hoping to see a more youth-driven, athletic Celtics squad with room to grow, this might feel like a step in the wrong direction. Simons is younger, more explosive, and while he's still raw in certain areas, he brings upside that DeRozan simply doesn't at this point in his career. It's a move that could help the Kings as well, giving them a dynamic guard for the future while shedding salary. But from a Celtics perspective, this deal feels like a placeholder at best, not a home run. Now let's pivot to something a little more intriguing. Another potential trade involves Sam Hauser, a player who's been quietly valuable as a floor spacer and reliable shooter. The idea here is to package Hauser and ship him off in exchange for Nick Richards, someone who could bring a different kind of depth to the frontcourt. Richards has bounced around a bit, most recently contributing solid minutes with the Hornets. He's shown flashes of being a dependable small ball five, offering rim protection, rebounding, and a bit of mobility. And here's where it gets interesting. While Hauser's shooting is no doubt valuable, the Celtics do have other options on the wing who can stretch the floor. Brad Stevens has made it clear that salary relief is a priority, and this deal would again lower Boston's payroll. The Suns, on the other hand, might be interested in Hauser as a cheaper shooting option to complement Devin Booker. They already have Grayson Allen, but with his contract becoming expensive, this could be a way for Phoenix to get similar production for less money. From Boston's standpoint, Richards could fit into a rotation that's still trying to figure itself out post-Horford. He wouldn't be a full-time starter, but in the right matchups, his size and athleticism could provide valuable minutes off the bench. This trade isn't going to light up the headlines, but it's the kind of under-the-radar move that could pay dividends over the course of a long season. Again, it's all part of Stevens' broader plan to retool without breaking the bank. And in a league where every dollar counts, finding value in players like Richards could be the difference between making a deep playoff run or flaming out early. But now let's talk about the trade that might actually move the needle, and this one involves the Utah Jazz. There's already a solid trade history between Boston and Utah, and this scenario could continue that trend. The Celtics send out Sam Hauser and a second-round pick in exchange for Walker Kessler and a familiar face, SVI Mikhailiuk. Now this one has some real upside. Let's start with Kessler. He's a young, mobile center with great defensive instincts and the ability to crash the boards hard. While not a polished offensive player, his shot blocking and rebounding alone would make him an instant contributor on this Celtics roster. More importantly, Kessler is the kind of center who doesn't demand touches but still impacts the game in big ways. Plug him next to Tatum and Brown, and suddenly you've got a lineup that can switch, protect the rim, and keep the pace high on both ends of the floor. Kessler also gives the Celtics something they've been lacking since Robert Williams' departure: a true defensive anchor in the paint who's still developing and has room to grow. And with a team that's planning for the long haul, that kind of addition is crucial. Mikhailiuk, while not a star, is a known quantity in Boston. He can knock down shots, play within the system, and provide solid minutes off the bench when needed. Essentially, he helps balance out the loss of Hauser's shooting, so the team isn't sacrificing too much spacing in the deal. Financially, once again, this trade helps Boston shave off some salary and get closer to that all-important first apron. It's another small win in a bigger game Brad Stevens is playing, one that's just as much about flexibility as it is about championship contention. And while none of these trades are flashy blockbuster deals, they do point to a clear strategy: maintain a competitive roster while avoiding the kind of long-term financial traps that can hamstring a franchise for years. Of course, there's always the question of who gets cut to make room for any new additions. If the Celtics were to pull the trigger on a deal like this, someone would likely have to be waived. And one name that comes up is Xavier Tillman. While he's shown flashes of being a gritty, physical presence on the court, the fit in Boston just hasn't been there. He's often referred to as a younger version of Al Horford, but the comparison hasn't translated into consistent production. In a crowded front court, and with new options potentially coming in, it's easy to see why Tillman could be the odd man out. Ultimately, all of these trade ideas show that Brad Stevens is operating with a clear vision. He's not just chasing names or making moves for the sake of headlines. He's trying to balance short-term competitiveness with long-term sustainability. The Celtics already have the star power. What they need now is depth, flexibility, and role players who can contribute without breaking the bank. And with a few final tweaks before the season tips off, they just might get there. With the right combination of roster movement and financial discipline, the Celtics could be on the verge of entering one of their most balanced seasons in recent memory. But part of that success will depend on how this team handles its frontcourt situation. One of the lingering questions revolves around who will anchor the paint when it matters most. Right now, it's still a puzzle with a few missing pieces. N'Faly Dante looked interesting during Summer League. Neemias Queta is coming off an impressive Eurobasket showing, and Luke Kornet has remained a steady, if unspectacular, piece. But let's be honest, none of these names have fully solidified themselves as the long-term answer at center, especially for a team with championship aspirations. That's why a name like Walker Kessler becomes so valuable in this moment. He's young, he's productive, and he fits the mold of a modern NBA big man. He runs the floor, protects the rim, and doesn't need the ball to make an impact. With the Celtics' offensive engine powered by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that kind of low-maintenance big is exactly what they need. Someone who can clean up the boards, get putbacks, defend the paint, and not disrupt the flow on offense. Of course, bringing in someone like Kessler doesn't just affect the rotation. It reshapes the identity of the bench unit. We've seen in the past how important it is for the Celtics to have bench players who can come in and keep the energy high without losing leads or letting the game slip away. That's what this front office is quietly building toward. Guys like SVI and Mikhailiuk give them the depth to space the floor and maintain the offensive rhythm, even when Tatum or Brown sits. Adding him back into the mix is a subtle but important piece of this potential trade puzzle. He knows the system, he's comfortable with the coaching staff, and he's a plug-and-play option that doesn't require a long adjustment period. And we can't overlook the fact that all these trade ideas circle back to Brad Stevens' larger plan. Every move made this offseason has had one clear priority: create a high-functioning team while dodging the suffocating penalties of the new CBA. That first apron has become more than just a financial threshold. It's the line between flexibility and chaos. Once a team crosses it, options get limited. The ability to sign players becomes trickier, trades become more complicated, and roster building turns into a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing. Stevens is trying to avoid that nightmare. He's aiming to keep this roster light enough to make adjustments mid-season if needed, whether that means adding a veteran on a buyout or flipping a young piece for someone who's playoff tested. That's the level of foresight you want from a front office, especially with the window of opportunity wide open. Let's not forget, this is a team built to win now. The Eastern Conference isn't getting any easier. Milwaukee still has the star power. Miami, despite being inconsistent, always shows up in the playoffs. Philadelphia has question marks, but also MVP-level talent. The Knicks are on the rise, and even teams like Indiana and Cleveland are starting to figure things out. So for the Celtics, every roster decision made today has postseason consequences tomorrow. Adding the right depth pieces could be the difference between another disappointing exit and finally hanging another banner in the Garden. One thing that fans often overlook in these kinds of mid-off-season trade discussions is how much these smaller deals influence locker room dynamics. Chemistry is everything. You can stack a roster with talent, but if the rotations don't flow or egos start to clash, it falls apart. That's why Brad isn't just looking for talent. He's looking for the right personalities. Players who buy in. Players who are willing to accept a role and deliver when their number is called. That's where a guy like Nick Richards might sneak in as a real asset. He's not going to demand touches. He's not going to complain about minutes. And he's proven that he could be productive when given the opportunity. For a team like Boston, where the top-end talent is already set, the value now lies in reliability off the bench. And that's what separates contenders from pretenders. There's also the looming situation with younger pieces on the roster. Peyton Pritchard has long been viewed as a player on the fringe, sometimes exploding for key stretches, other times buried in the rotation. The preseason is going to be crucial for him, especially if the Celtics do end up making another trade. He could be in the mix for a bigger role, or he could become part of a trade package if Stevens sees an opportunity to bring in someone who fills a more immediate need. His future is far from guaranteed, and that's true for a handful of other young guys trying to earn their spot on a team with championship goals. And speaking of that goal, it's not just about making the playoffs anymore. That expectation is behind them. The standard is the finals. Nothing less. After multiple deep runs that fell just short, the Celtics are tired of being close. This roster was built to dominate, not just compete. So every move, every trade, every cut from here until opening night will be made with one thing in mind. Can this guy help us win it all? That's why the front office is moving with precision, not panic. It's easy for fans to scream for blockbuster trades or demand that Boston go all in, but true contenders don't operate out of desperation. They operate with purpose. That's what Brad Stevens has shown since taking the reins. He's not going to chase a big name just to get headlines. He's going to build around the Jays with intent, with vision, and with the kind of patience that championship teams require. And if that means moving a player like Hauser or cutting ties with someone like Xavier Tillman, then so be it. This isn't about loyalty, it's about results. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Boston is buzzing with speculation after whispers emerged that Filipino giant Kai SOTTO has touched down in the city, and sources close to the team hint that the Celtics could be on the verge of a major roster shakeup. Standing an imposing 7'3", SOTTO's arrival has fueled a flurry of excitement and curiosity about how he might reshape Boston's frontcourt. The Celtics, already known for their strategic depth, seem to be eyeing a new dimension in their paint game, and whispers suggest that SOTTO could be the long-sought answer to bolster both defense and scoring inside. The chatter in Boston sports circles has grown louder in recent days, with insiders dropping hints that the team has been closely monitoring SOTTO's progress overseas. While no official announcements have been made, Sources claim that Celtics executives are quietly evaluating how his unique skill set, mobility, shooting touch, and shot-blocking ability could fit into a roster already packed with talent. Fans are buzzing on social media, speculating whether SOTTO might see minutes alongside the likes of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, potentially creating one of the tallest and most versatile lineups in recent memory. Adding fuel to the rumor mill, local gym-goers and media members have reported sightings of the 19-year-old phenom training in Boston facilities, moving with a surprising fluidity for someone of his stature. Analysts are already debating whether his presence could transform the Celtics' rebounding numbers, interior defense, and even fast-break transition game. The city, known for its fervent basketball culture, seems ready to embrace him as a potential cornerstone, or at the very least, a fascinating experiment that could tip the Eastern Conference balance. While front office sources remain tight-lipped, the combination of SOTTO's towering frame and polished skill set is enough to ignite imaginations. Could the Celtics finally solve their search for an elite big man? Or is this just another chapter in the long saga of high-profile rumors that swirl around the league? For now, Boston holds its breath, eyes fixed on the gym courts where the Filipino giant is quietly making headlines without uttering a word. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.